Hello future investors and welcome back to another weekly episode. Today I'm going to be talking about 4 years of buying gold and silver. Here's what I've learned. So yeah, I've been investing in gold and silver bullion for around 4 years. I started buying in around 2020 during the COVID pandemic when I was furloughed from my employment and I was sitting at home for a long period of time twiddling my thumbs and had quite a bit of cash sitting in the bank, which I knew was a very bad thing to just have that sitting there, even though I had at the time quite a limited knowledge of investments. So the world of investing, the word investing and assets. Well, when you buy anything in life, you can pretty much call it whatever you like. But when it comes to precious metals and gold and silver bullion, when you use the word investment or asset, people do get funny about it because they say, well, it's not really an investment or an asset because you're not making capital back like you might say in buy-to-let properties. But I like to call it investment. I like to call it an asset because at the end of the day, I'm putting my cash in something that is protecting my wealth against inflation, and it's protecting my wealth in terms of saving and potential profit from the value of it going up. So I'll get more onto that in a moment. But yeah, I do see buying gold and silver as an investment, as an asset, and I like to call it that. So you're free to call it whatever you like. But yeah, I call it an investment and an asset because I do believe it's an asset because it's benefiting me by putting my capital into the asset, such as gold or silver, and it's looking after that money for me. And I do think it's an investment because I believe that the money I'm investing into the specific precious metal now, be it gold or silver, is going to increase that money that I've invested over a long period of time. Now, moving on, I have learned that gold and silver is not a short-term investment. Now, I knew this early on that it was a long-term investment, but as I've been stacking it more and more, it's really become aware to me of how much buying gold and silver bullion, especially in a tangible form, is not a short-term investment. It is absolutely a long-term investment. Now, the reason for that is you have a spot price and you have the premiums that the bullion dealers put on top of the spot price to make their profit. Now, the thing is with buying gold and silver bullion, initially when you make that investment, so to speak, you will actually technically be putting your money at risk, because if you was to sell within a few months, maybe even a year of buying that specific precious metal, you could potentially not make that money back because you have to wait a certain amount of time for the value or the spot price of gold and silver bullion to increase to outweigh the premiums you have paid. So you can't really flip tangible gold and silver bullion unless you really know what you're doing. Maybe you're buying a proof piece, maybe you're buying a limited edition bespoke one-off design that was created by maybe the Royal Mint or PAMP, and you know it's going to have some serious resellable value because it's in high demand. But generically, when you're talking about standard sovereigns and Britannias, yeah, you need to hold it for a long time so you can outweigh that initial investment where you've had to pay those premiums. Now, another thing I've learned about investing in precious metals, and I absolutely love this one, is that it's the best hedge against inflation, at least in my opinion, especially when you're talking about gold bullion. Inflation is rife right now. In the United Kingdom, they're raising the interest rates all the way up to 6%. So if it's time for you to renew your mortgage, it's not looking good for a lot of people, especially those people that don't have that spare capital, who haven't particularly been wise enough or had the opportunity to do better things with their finances. So inflation, well, with gold and silver bullion, as a lot of you seasoned stackers will know, and as most of you new investors might not be fully aware of, is that when you invest your money into gold and silver, it's actually hedging against that inflation. So for example, in very, very short, simple terms, if you had £10,000 or $10,000 in your bank account, if you just left it there, sitting there, over a period of 10 years, the buying power of that £10,000 or $10,000 would buy you a lot less than it would buy you now, because inflation lowers the rate of the fiat currency, therefore decreasing the buying power of that $10,000 or £10,000. Whereas when you invest that money into, say, gold tends to go up with inflation. So that's the greatest way of preserving your wealth with a very low risk side to that investment. Now, another thing that comes with gold and silver is you've got to be aware that prices move up, they move down, and they move side to side. There is no particularly stable price when it comes to precious metals. Like all things really, there is huge price fluctuations, and that can depend on many different things. It can be the global financial markets. It can be that someone has announced some new news, or a country has announced maybe a huge deposit, or maybe there's a demand for silver. So one thing to bear in mind is when you're buying gold and silver bullion, you can try and time the pricing. But at the end of the day, gold and silver prices are always going to move up, down, and side to side. So I always believe it's better just to buy when you can afford to buy it and hold it over a long period of time. And you're going to outweigh those high and low prices. A bit like dollar cost averaging. When you're investing in maybe an index fund, I like to dollar cost average, where I buy at the same period of time every single month at the same value. And then overall, by the end of my investment, I've dollar cost averaged, and it works out potentially that you have actually bought at a good happy medium throughout that long period of time. Now, gold. I personally love gold. I like it more than silver. It's my favourite when it comes to tangible bullion. I love the fact that gold historically performs very, very well. A saying that I commonly refer to is the fact that gold has been around for over 4,000 years. So I believe it's going to be around for a lot longer in terms of time to come. I think it's going to be around a lot longer than, say, I'm here on planet Earth, sadly. But yeah, gold performs very, very well. Countries are heavily invested in it. You've got the Bank of England, China, America, Canada, so many countries that are heavily invested in gold bullion. And I don't think, in my opinion, it's going anywhere anytime soon. Now, silver, on the other hand, silver, in my opinion, is a bit more of a slow mover, but it has great upside potential. I love silver. I think it has really, really great upside potential because of its industrial uses. Silver is one of, if not the best conductor of electricity, and it's used in everything such as medicine, healthcare, and solar panels, and the electric cars that are coming out. And in the UK, at least, electric cars are mandatory to be made by 2030 or 2035. So all of the components that are in those batteries, they use elements of silver. So being an industrial metal more than gold bullion, I do see great upside potential for silver because obviously it's a non-renewable resource. It's mined out of the earth, and I think that the demand over the next decade or 2 decades is going to go really, really high for silver because the usage of it is going to be in more and more demand. So I therefore believe that the prices will get pushed up. Now, a negative, of course, is that I've learned that silver has quite a lot of VAT when you buy silver. It does hammer the initial purchase, so you really do have to bear that in mind when purchasing silver. But, you know, as I say, I believe it's a great long-term investment because I have faith that it's a really viable investment that's got a lot of upside potential. Now, precious metals also to me is a savings account. That's how I primarily look at investing in tangible gold and silver bullion. You can talk about all of the benefits that it's got, you know, hedging against inflation, preserving your wealth, potential upside value when it comes to silver. But essentially, for me, investing in tangible gold and silver bullion is a really strong form of having a savings account. I don't like to keep it in the bank because we know that there's no interest there, and even if you had good interest, it's still not going to keep up with that true inflation rate. So each year you'll be worse and worse off. So effectively what I like to think is that I'm storing all of my savings, or some of my savings, a section of it, in gold and silver bullion, and my gold and silver bullion is looking after that money for me. I believe it's an extremely low risk way of doing that, and it goes up with inflation, so it's staying strong no matter how long I hold that precious metal. And I'd say lastly, if you've got health, you've got wealth, and everything else is a bonus. Looking after your finances, saving money, I believe is very important. I believe bettering your financial future is very important. You've only got one life. I don't believe money is important, but I believe the bonuses that money can do for your life is important. However, having said that, it is not everything. And being an investor who has had this experience of getting tunnel vision and getting a little bit too focused on my goals and not focused on living. I think the slogan that I always like to live by is, if you've got health, you've got wealth, and everything else is a bonus. Because at the end of the day, there's always somebody who would be willing to trade their position for yours. So just remember that it's very well and very good that you're trying to better your financial circumstances, but at the end of the day, you haven't really got anything unless you've got health. So everything after that, more specifically gold and silver bullion, is a bonus. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. That is my 4 years of buying gold and silver bullion and what I've learned. So really enjoyed filming this episode. Let me know in the comment section what you think, whether you agree or disagree with me. Big shout out to the channel members. Thank you for supporting as always. I really appreciate it. Until next time, I'll see you all in the very next episode. Bye bye, guys. To watch another episode on future investments, click the link now.